Sometimes when you're driving down the road all by yourself, you begin to hear a voice that tells you need to look around, pay attention, maybe something isn't quite right. That voice is me. It's the voice of Gord. Hey everybody, how's it going? Super quick little intro for you. You would have seen some activity online here in the past week or so regards an issue in trucking that those of us on FreightX and in the sort of wider community have been discussing for a few months now. And that is these fraudulent CDLs issued in the United States with no name given or first name unknown or last name unknown, often to recent arrivals who don't have documentation. And then these CDLs are very questionable, suspicious, and how do you identify people if they don't even have a name? There's some very minor legitimate explanation for this, but a lot of it is not. And I brought a couple of professional researchers in the trucking business to come talk about this. Guests today are my friend Danielle, who's been on the show a couple times, Danielle Chaffin of the Highway Veritas Substack, and just an absolute madwoman on Twitter, bringing us all the details, all the information. She does really great research. And I also brought on the show today for the first time Miranda from the Trucking Made Successful YouTube channel, because she has likewise been looking into this, and I got to pick her brain a little bit about various communities within trucking, of which she speaks their language, and she brings us a little bit of insight into what's going on with those guys, and I think this is a pretty good show. I also recorded the video for this. I normally don't do that, but because these guys have so many charts and research and images and pictures they wanted to share with everybody, I took the Zoom and let Danielle and Miranda do screen sharing to present all of their findings, and I posted it on YouTube. Both of them are pretty easy on the eyes, so there's that too. Anyway, yeah, Danielle wanted to do a video, so I've released a video on YouTube. You'll find the link for that in the show notes if you normally like to watch such things. I don't, as you know, most of my podcasts are audio only, but exceptions abound. Other good news, the book is done. Yeah, the body of the book is done, the edits are done, and now it's in the hands of my publisher. They might request some minor edits or changes or whatever, but basically it's all done but the crying, and goes to typesetters soon, and pre-sales will be available for it in November. Go check out the link to my publisher, creedandculture.com. They've got a site up for my book, and in November you'll be able to pre-sale it. I think pre-sales are open on Amazon, but we don't like them guys. We're going to buy directly from my publisher. So check that out, and as more news about that comes up here in the next few weeks, I will let you guys know. As always, head on over to autonomoustruckers.substack.com if you haven't already, and you can smash that subscribe button and get all of this stuff directly to your inbox. Follow me on Twitter at Gord McGill. Links to Miranda and Danielle's websites, work, and their Twitters will also be in the show notes. Go check them out. Questions, comments, suggestions, corrections, and hate mail are always welcomed and encouraged. Gordilox@protonmail.com. Would love to hear from you. All right, so let's get to Danielle and Miranda and figure out what's going on with all these no-name given guys. All right, g'day everybody. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Voice of Gord podcast. I'm Gord, and this is my voice. For the audio listeners, little treat here for everybody else that likes to watch YouTube. I'm doing another video episode, so if you're listening to this on Spotify or Substack or wherever, you can flip over to YouTube and check it out there and see my two beautiful guests and all of their awesome charts. Um, Kind of a somewhat semi-emergency episode, I guess, because trucking once again is hot in the news and has achieved escape velocity from the sort of trucking media information silo, which has its own silos within it because some people will talk about certain things and others will not. So my two guests are going to talk about a very hot issue, and that is the title of the show today, No Name Given, because apparently the government will just give you a commercial driver's license even if you don't officially have a name or any identifying features about you whatsoever other than you wanted a CDL and somebody wanted to give you one. So coming to speak with us today is Ms. Miranda from the Trucking Made Successful YouTube channel. Miranda, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, my first time meeting you and chatting ever. This is great. You do a wonderful thing with your program. I've learned quite a bit from it, and I've referenced it in my Substack a few times, and you're also going to be in my book. So,
Oh, amazing. Thank you.
yeah. I transcribed some of your commentary for the book.
Love
Uh,
it.
yeah, and our other guest, everybody knows her from FreightX. May be Danielle, whose research is basically what brought us here. Between Danielle and our friends American Truckers United, there's been a lot of focus on all of these fraudulently issued CDLs, and your research and all of the buzz that has been generated from it, along with our friends Shannon and Cliff and Harvey at ATU, has gone straight to the top. Basically, you guys were referenced by Secretary Sean Duffy here a couple weeks ago as he made announcements to try and rein some of this stuff in. And he's basically researching the work of people on FreightX like you guys. So welcome back to the show, Danielle. This is your third time on The Voice of Gord.
Thank you, Gord. Three is my favorite number. So that's wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Right.
Always
So,
great. Pleasure.
yeah, no, always good to have you here. And our interactions on FreightX are outstanding. Like I say, you're very informative and your research is awesome. So, let's get right into it. What's going on with these CDLs? Why is there no name given? Who's issuing them? How is it happening? What's the nuts and bolts behind all of this?
Yeah. So I'll start with them being issued, the legal reason as to why this is okay, and then debunk the legal reason. So the states that I have found issuing no name given, this also aligns with the corporate business filings under no name given. 98% of those are coming out of California. There are a few in New York and some in Indiana. I think I have one in Utah, but majority is California. And then we have some New York, Indiana, Utah. There's probably more. I just haven't stumbled upon them yet. I will find them as I find anything that I want to find, but that's where they're coming from. The legal reason as to why this is okay is because when an individual comes into the United States from another country, the naming convention or how their first surname, middle name, the way that it works, it doesn't translate into America's definition of first and last name, which is silly. So they will go with the person's first name, like Vicky. I'm looking at one right now, I'll share in a minute, like Vicky, and then it will be no name given. So you have Vicky, no name given, because for whatever reason, the name doesn't translate into first and last.
There's another convention with this where it's flipped around where they have a last name, but then they don't have a first name, and their
Correct.
first name becomes FNU.
Yeah.
First name
Fanu Lanu.
unknown. FNU. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I did find some memes from a long time ago that where people were calling it Fanu Lanu, and I thought that was hilarious. There are different variations. And so I found no name given, no given name, no given name with two I's, so Giiven. And then we have FNU or LNU, And then there's even a UNK, which would mean unknown.
Right. And this is as you say, the official reasoning behind this is that it's downstream of other countries'
Correct.
particularities with naming
Correct.
conventions.
And
As
so
I
that's
as I
that.
understand, I just want to give people some context for this, some actual real world context. Some countries do have very strange naming conventions. I believe the Muslim part of Indonesia, which is most of it, there are no last names. Everyone just has a name, first name. That's it. That's all you get. And then there's a Hindu majority island in the Indonesian archipelago called Bali, which many people know about because it's popular with tourists. I've been to Bali twice myself because I lived next door in Australia for a while. And the Balinese, they have a very small group of names, feminine and masculine, that are based on birth order. So you'll get, first kid, second kid, third kid, fourth kid, fifth kid, and there's a separate name that's literally means birth order, right? And so we had this driver guy when we were in Bali, and his name was Komang, but Komang means born fourth male. It does not mean like he gets a nickname, right? Like he will have a nickname assigned to him to like get around this weird naming convention. But on paper, like most men in Indonesia have one of five names because well, they're apparently they don't have the same problem America does with like fecundity. All the women have like four or five kids, which is awesome. Maybe we should do that. And then you have Iceland, which has a patrimonial naming system. So you'll have like a normal first name, whatever it is. And then your last name is your dad's first name, and then either daughter or son, right? So Erickson, Eriksdeuter, and that's they have this like strange naming convention there. But anyway, carry on.
Yes. So no name given, the new Lanu on CDLs. I initially did not find this in the CDLs. I found it when I was working with the 2 million rows of DOT registrations or trucking company registrations. The 2 million rows, those do include the electric companies, your lawn care businesses, your taxis. And so later down the line, I do filter those out now because people call me out on it all the time. When I was scrolling through those and just looking, that's when I stumbled upon my first set of no name given. I thought that was insane. And so of course I looked into it to try to figure out why this can be a thing. And that's what I found was the legal reason. That's the community notes on all of my X posts today is that there's legal reason for this. My issue with this and my greatest concern is that when a trucking company or the DOT is registered in the DOT, the FMCSA database, and they use first name unknown or no name, no given name, after that DOT is approved, 90% of the time, they go back in and update the name, and it's a real name. And so, because that happens so often, I have to believe that the no name given, and because of all of the related DOTs that they've had, all of the clusters being in one apartment complex, it's a cop out. It is an excuse to get through the system that they think matches on names, and I don't think it does today. It might. I don't know. I could never get through the registration process anyway. But using that naming convention that doesn't match a previous DOT, they can just fly through and get another one.
Right. So this kind of overlaps with something else you discuss quite often on your awesome Substack, Highway Veritas. Everybody should go read that. Is the chameleon carriers and
Yes.
these companies that have like different entities, different LLCs. And then when they start racking up inspection points and the government comes after them or the insurance company says get lost, they just
Hmm.
move all their drivers and their equipment to another entity, pop
Correct.
up with a new MC number, and keep on trucking.
Yep. Yep. And that's exactly it. I'll share my screen in just a second to show, to support what I'm saying. But when I was going through those, I was just looking at the ones registered in 2025 and the number of matching US DOTs or related US DOTs, the chameleon carrier activity, it is rampant in this no name given naming convention. And no name given, I went and looked at it yesterday because I don't like saying things that are not true and that I can't back by the data because then I have no argument. And so I went to look at it and I just wanted to know, is this a new thing or has it been going on for 45 years? There are some people on X that argue with me and say that's been going on, they've been talking about it for 45 years. No, they haven't because it hasn't been happening that long. From 2015 to 2022, there were 25 no name given US DOTs. 25. From 2022 until yesterday, October 2nd, 2025, there are 623 US DOTs registered with some variation of no name given.
Right. So you had how many in that first 7 years? Like 20?
25.
25. And then in the last couple of years, we have over 600.
623.
Right. So that's quite the increase. And that follows, again, something I harp on about a
Yes.
lot is the Biden trucking action plan, where, or trucking task force, whatever they called it. And they basically, in 12 months, doubled the number of CDLs issued normally in 1 year, went from typically 400 to 450,000 a year. And the 12 months after the action plan, it went up to 876,000. They
Yeah.
did not double the number of CDL schools. They did not double the number of state examiners. They did not really do much of anything. They threw some money at the existing ones, but it was during COVID, and it's not like they could just pull in new state examiners after they laid everybody off. So actually, in those 12 months, it could be argued they had less state examiners and less capacity to issue more of these licenses. So where did they come from? Where did all these licenses come from? And this, I think, is the sort of nub of Secretary Duffy's ongoing investigations about these non-domiciled CDLs. Again, shout out to Shannon, Harvey, and Cliff at CDL or American Truckers United for figuring all this stuff out, checking all those numbers and sending it to USDOT. They're basically the ones that got this ball rolling on the investigations into this, which are ongoing. Miranda, you haven't said too much. Where do you intersect with FNU and no name given, and what are you seeing from your approach? First of all, for anybody who hasn't seen your show, tell us about Trucking Made Successful. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the trucking business, and anything else you'd like to share with us before we get rolling.
Sure. I got into the trucking business because my family had this crazy idea of opening a trucking company. And because I was probably the most organized person in my family, they asked me to help them with the documentation. Now, I was a recruiter and I was not interested in trucking. I didn't know anything about it. But once I started opening the company, once I started learning, I kind of got hooked because for me, the most important thing is continuous learning. I'm kind of like a student for life. So that's how I got in. Trucking Made Successful was initially there to help people who did not know how to navigate the trucking industry, because I remember me starting. I mean, the amount of questions, the amount of phone calls I had to make to the FMCSA was insane. So I just wanted to make it easier for people to navigate. And then it went into market updates, and then it went into current news. Now, in terms of this no name given CDL situation, the reason I got so kind of obsessed with it was because of Danielle's post on the abbreviations. Recently, like 6 months ago, we got into a crash. We were rear-ended, and I remember the first name of the driver who rear-ended us. It was two drivers, and the first name was really interesting. It was FNU. Now, I have a problem with pronunciation, and considering the fact that that name was so hard to pronounce, it kind of stuck. When I saw the post that FNU is first name unknown, everything made sense because it was so difficult to get paid after they rear-ended us. I'll tell you more. On the side of the truck, it was one name. It was a company name, one DOT, one MC. In the accident report, it was a completely different company that was shut down and continued operating. Then if you look up that original company, the registered agent slash CEO is also registered with 25 other companies.
Of course he is.
It's insane. And the insurance, when we were filing a claim with the at-fault parties insurance, they couldn't get a hold of the drivers or the owner. And basically, the only reason we got paid out was because the VIN number matched the policy, not because the drivers did, the VIN number. So yeah, it just hit close to home. And of course, at that point, I started digging and trying to figure out everything for myself. So thank you, Danielle, learning something new every day.
You got really lucky getting paid out with the VIN number matching, because as I've spoken with some insurance people and some attorneys who've been involved in adjudicating these incidents. Quite often, these same companies who are typically chameleon carriers employing people with questionable CDLs are also a little bit loose with the insurance. You know, hey, we have a fleet policy. We put it in all of our trucks, but actually it's only for 3, not the 100 trucks. It's for 3 or 2 or 10 or something like this. Like they photocopy their insurance and hope to keep getting away with it. And quite often law enforcement don't catch up with that. They're just like, oh, you got a fleet policy, sweet. And they stop looking.
Yeah. And the crazy part is the name on the side of the truck that hit us. They have been in business only a month. I mean, their authority was only a month old before they got into that crash with us. They shut it down. And another interesting thing is that the original carrier that shut down a while back, their address is that principal place of business also belongs to a bunch of different trucking companies. It's a warehouse. It's just so strange. Again, you start digging, it's like a matrix.
Yeah, no, and again, this is, so speaking of Secretary Duffy and the FMCSA, one of the things they're supposed to do, overseeing all this, is enforce, right? So a trucking company, like, you can share an address, that's fine, as long as you have all of your registration there, your truck inspections, all of your employee information, all of your mandatory CDL information, drug test information, medical stuff, registration for the trucks, inspections for the trucks. As long as your company is actually physically at that place, we're good. And if there's like 6 companies working out of the same warehouse, but they all have all their stuff there, they're fine. But what happens when it's like one of these apartment complexes where there's 300 different companies and it's an apartment complex with nowhere to park trucks? It gets a little questionable. And I don't think FMCSA has got the resources to chase all these people down.
Yeah, it's really hard to find. And again, a lot of the digging that I did was thanks to Danielle. So thank you very much. When I looked at the inactive authorities, I mean, under one address, there are variations in the apartment number. I think at one point I found 45 different entities under one apartment complex. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how many drivers they had between them all, or was it the same group of drivers?
I'm sure it was the same group.
Yeah, Danielle. So on this again, let's get back to this no name given thing. Obviously, there's other problems with CDLs. We have these numbers from the ATU guys about at least 10 states that have reduced requirements, which is why we have seen this explosion in non-domiciled CDLs. From your research, can you tell us what you think is going on in California with the no name given thing? That's not just the fact that maybe they have tons of migrants from Indonesia or Uzbekistan or whatever. Like, clearly something else is going on, because California has a long history of their DMV being corrupt. There's a number of articles I've referenced where like DMVs have been found to issue CDLs with like no testing going on, taking bribes like in Florida and Oregon and Illinois and Massachusetts and everywhere else. And also like a friend of mine who's kind of a philosopher and writer, motorcycle guy, his name is Matthew Crawford. He wrote this article for a magazine in the UK called Unheard about this corruption, and he had to get some kind of paperwork for his motorbike because it doesn't have an exhaust that meets the state requirements for California. but he heard that if he just showed up to this particular DMV and texted this particular phone number, a little Chinese lady would come out and he would hand her $200. And then 20 minutes later, she'd come back out with all the paperwork saying his motorcycle was legal when in fact it was not. And he got away with it and he documented it all and put it in this article. So, like, it can't be just everybody else noticing this. Like, what's going on in California?
So I think there's absolutely corruption in the DMVs. I think specific to the naming convention with no name given, it's that comes upstream from the DMV. And so the immigration documents or the work visa, I think this is all speculative based on everything, educated guess. I believe that there are multiple individuals that will use the same work visa. And so on that work visa, that is the name that's on the work visa. No name given, Robbie. You have 5 guys that take no name given Robbie into the DMV or to the CDL school and then on to the DMV. I was going to go down a CDL school and I stopped myself. They take that into the DMV and then they're given the license. Or sharing work visas is one thing and getting multiple CDLs, and or could be both. They're sharing a CDL, and because there isn't the full legal name, it's very easy to track me. I have a full legal 3 names. You both probably have full legal names. It's very easy to track you. 4. See? Exactly. And so it's very easy to track us. I could run a background check probably on myself right now and find everything about me that I don't even want to know. If I put in no name given Vicky, no name given Robbie, there's probably 15 people that's going to come up. It's going to be different addresses, probably over multiple states. Very hard to track that, and probably multiple individuals that are actually sharing the exact same name. So they're taking those immigration documents. We know through the news and the reporting and the government indictments, there is absolute corruption within the immigration organizations, the refugee centers, where they go to process all of this documentation before they ever get to the DMV. So we know that there's corruption there. We know that there's corruption in the DMV. And so just like you said, they go to a specific DMV and they say, sure, no name given, and they type it in and they move on.
Right. So while we're here, I want to take a little mini diversion on something you just said, because we have this sort of ecosystem of NGOs and foundations and various organizations who exist to, bring more people to America and then help them out, give them jobs. Maybe some of those people in their heart of hearts think they're helping. Some of them are funded by extremely wealthy people and corporations with an agenda behind them and are not so helping. But, you wrote this great article on your Substack talking about this, and you just had like dozens and dozens and dozens of examples of these NGOs, foundations, and nonprofits who are all up to their eyeballs in placing refugees and migrants in the trucking industry. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, and let me go ahead and share that article on this screen, and I'll talk through it too since it's going to be audio. So the article on it's my Substack, but it also goes through highlyveritas.com. It is called Your Taxes, Your Truck Driver Shortage. And really that is, it is through the NGOs, through the tuition assistance. I think I'm sharing the right screen. You guys can see it. Cool. Through the NGOs and the tuition assistance, we have had multiple states, multiple programs that have targeted certain communities to bring them in and be truck drivers. Why? I don't know. I mean, I do know because it's easier for these people. They already are qualified for the grants for tuition assistance. So we're not having to make up new laws, new rules for them to apply for these programs, and then ultimately someone getting paid by the government grants. So this is easy. And this one, screenshot, I combined a bunch. We have Immigrants in Trucking, Career and Job Search Guide. That was a website that tells the people coming into America how to get through this process. We have For Somali Immigrants, Trucking Life Echoes Traditional Nomadism, African Immigrants and the American Dream in Trucking, CDL Training for Refugees, and there are some more. So when I scroll down, we have the Biden-Harris administration provides millions to boost trucking workforce programs. In any industry in the United States, anytime that you see the word workforce or workforce development, you can almost guarantee that there is some type of activity going on in that is not as great as it seems. And so all of this money was funneled in to help refugees and immigrants get through truck driving school. Truck driving school gets paid by the government grants, and then we push the drivers onto the roads. And I'm going to keep scrolling now, and because of the audio, I'll keep reading. But there is an entire career center, Emerge Career, that is an online school, and multiple schools across the United States uses this one. It's for the book training. I forget what it's called. There's a name for it, but it's the paperwork, the training, not the skills.
I believe that's called ELDT, entry level driver training.
That's it. Yes. Thank you so much. Yep. So there's a couple of programs that provide that online. And if anyone has ever taken an online class, your attention span and the ability to retain the information, I would say, is probably 50% or less than it would be if someone is upfront teaching you and you're having that interaction between the guide or the trainer, teacher, and participants. We have Arizona. We have a Free World program helping people get into trucking. That one was for criminal histories. We're not going to go into that one today. And then this one is interesting. The one out of Wisconsin, and one of the truck driving schools that I have always respected, I think they had a phenomenal program, Fox Valley Technical College. They've actually pulled this article off of their website. And thankfully, I had found it and included in my Substack article prior to them taking it down. But they had an entire program training for refugees and pulling them in and getting them out on the road.
Question, when did they pull that down?
This was back the first viral trucking right after the U-turn wreck in Florida.
So early August.
Yeah, one of the mass accounts actually was Jack Posobiec. He had referenced one of their posts, and I went and I saw him repost it, and then it said the post was deleted. And I was like, oh, I can help you. I have a screenshot of this. And it was this program that they had posted on X, and then he had reshared it when everything went viral the first time.
Yeah, I think these folks understand how unpopular what they're doing is, right? So this happens to you. I'm going to share a little anecdote for you and the listeners and anyone watching this YouTube video. A few weeks back, we had this situation in Nebraska where one of our Twitter mutuals, at Tar Heel Trucker, sent me a screenshot of this article from a website in Kenya talking about a memorandum of understanding between the state of Nebraska and Kenya with a labor mobility agreement and a bunch of trade stuff and agriculture. Yes. And it mentioned truck drivers, and there was a picture of a truck in the article. And I'm like, oh, what's this all about? So I went and dug it up, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. So I decided to triangulate it, and I find another article, and then another article, and then another one involving Werner. So that's when I screenshotted 4 of the articles, put the tweet up, and then it went viral, and you shared it. The ATU guys shared it, and it went everywhere. And then all of a sudden it went into Nebraska media, and then there was denial from Werner, and Werner replied to your tweets, the CEO guy, Derek Leathers. And I decided to dig a little bit further into it, right as all of that was kicking off. And I come to find out that there's a little teeny tiny truck driving school in a little teeny tiny town in Nebraska called Aurora. And there was these guys called IWS, International Workforce Specialties or something like that.
Workforce.
Yeah, exactly. Workforce. Yeah. And they had already been doing this before the state of Nebraska even got involved. Like they were advertising it back in 2022. They bought a hotel to house people as soon as they got off the plane from Kenya. And then they were putting them through a training program, and they listed what their training program involved on their website. Oh, wow, look at that. Couldn't take any longer than 3 weeks. Off the plane from Kenya, into a truck in America, over the road. 3 weeks, boom. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting. And I start taking screenshots, and then I wrote this thing on Substack. So this all blows up. A few days later, the governor of Nebraska himself throws his own Secretary of State under the bus in a public statement.
He did.
Yeah, saying, hey, I don't know about this. The Secretary's office operates independently from me. I don't know what's going on at the DMV. He basically, in a sort of diplomatic fashion, said, not my fault, right? So he hangs the Secretary of State out to dry. A number of media pieces come out trying to defend the government and saying, well, there's actually a truck driver shortage and the ATA says this. And then Werner tries to deny it. And Nebraska NPR guy reaches out to me for an interview. So I was on the phone with him for an hour explaining our position on this stuff and what the reality on the ground is for the labor markets and the trucking industry, how the freight market's way over capacity. There's too many trucks. We have all these problems with in-source labor getting in accidents and everywhere. We have this move from Trump to reestablish the English language proficiency requirements. And so kudos to him. I won't say his name yet until the article comes out, but this NPR guy was extremely interested and he had done his homework. And he was the only guy in the entire media ecosystem that was looking into this who knew who the IWS people were. Like he actually went and read my Substack and then looked into what they were up to. And I think he might have tried to get a hold of them. And they might have been one of the people who, because one of the reasons this article has not come out yet is because a number of players in this Nebraska story refused to give any comment to the NPR guy. I go back and look at IWS's website. It used to say, worldwide training, like we will help trainees from anywhere. They scrubbed it from their website, and then they took their training regimen thing, which had its own drop-down menu, and then they hid it like in the bottom corner in a bunch of other different menus later. So they didn't get rid of it, but they like removed it. They moved it on their website so it wasn't so prominent. So I think all these cats are sort of feeling the heat here from people asking legitimate questions like, why is it when we've been in a protracted freight recession for 3 years and American trucking companies are going out of business left, right, and center, and guys like me have been laid off for 2 years, I can't get a driving job to save my life, are we continuing to insource quote unquote truck drivers from other countries around the world? Why is it that America has turned into an economic zone for migrants from all over the place just so that they can why is the trucking industry being turned into a cash cow for the rest of the world when the trucking industry here is hurting really badly, right? And I think like some of the people, I don't know where IWS is getting their money from. I have no idea. Maybe they're being paid by the companies that hire drivers. There's arrangements like that. I don't know. Maybe they're getting money from the government. I haven't dove that far into them. I haven't had time. I wish somebody would take this on in an investigative fashion. But like if we're like, okay, they got rid of Doge, right? We had the Department of Government Efficiency, cut, get rid of USAID, do all this stuff. They never came to the trucking industry where it appears like even before all of this insourcing of labor starts happening in 2022, right? And it was already happening before, but it just ramped up exponentially. Yeah. I've been talking about this since I first started popping up online in 2017. Trucking has a corporate welfare problem. All of these training schools, the CDL mills, they're getting government money to train people who enter an industry. 90% of those people quit within a year. Yeah. Some of them quit within 6 months. Like, why are we continuing to throw money? Why are we not making the job better, paying drivers more, fixing detention, fixing all these problems? They just keep throwing money at it. And what you've discovered through all these NGOs and foundations is this is a new vector by which the taxpayer is throwing money at the trucking industry, except instead of going straight to Werner and their driving school or straight to some other driving school, it goes to the NGO foundation complex first. They take their cut, and instead of it training Americans, it's now training immigrants.
Correct. And so IWS is a perfect example for what I'm about to say. The government grants for a person, I'm going to use my little brother as an example. My little brother did not go to college. He went to trade school to get his welding license. He's 30 now. He makes good money doing what he does. He works on a huge drill for concrete, skyscraper type buildings. If he wanted to go get his CDL today, making as much money as he does, being a citizen of the United States, he would have to pay out of pocket the exact cost to get his CDL, to go through school.
So
5,000.
he would not qualify for government assistance.
Correct. Those are not the people that we can mass recruit to driving schools that are greatly funded by government grants. So we have to go after, and we is not me, we have to go after people that qualify for the programs. A few years ago, it was immigrants and refugees. Now, coming out, it's foster youth and criminals or justice-involved persons. With programs like IWS out of Nebraska, you mentioned the hotel. You mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned, but with the hotel, they also provide the food, the basic necessities. That has nothing to do with trucking. And that was one of my goals when I came into all of this. I had to show and prove that this is not just a trucking problem. When you have a school like IWS that's bringing in immigrants and refugees, providing skills or workforce development training, you're housing them, you're feeding them. That doesn't come through DOT funds. That comes through labor. That comes through, there's another one, it's community that provides money for the housing. And so all of this is free for people that qualify. IWS is not only getting paid for the CDL school, they're getting paid to provide housing, they're getting paid to provide basic necessities like food, water, drinks, whatever. And I'm sure in some way that I haven't dug up yet, they're getting paid for something in the medical insurance. There was a huge investigative article that came out recently about Minnesota and the mass fraud in the medical stuff there. It is so deeply ingrained and involved and connected to everything that's not trucking. And these people, like whoever owns IWS, I know who owns it, but it's not the point here. That person has figured out how to get money from every single possible place and get paid for bringing in the people that qualify for the programs.
Right. And the people that qualify for the programs are, in my humble opinion, unqualified to drive trucks.
Correct.
There's no evidence that most of these people coming here were truck drivers in their home countries. And I'm going to actually ask Miranda a question about this in a second, but I'm going to editorialize here a little bit on a tweet I've made and one Shannon has made as well, is that all of this is in one direction, right? Everyone's coming to the United States or Canada. None of us can go anywhere else. There are no truck drivers moving to Russia or the Ukraine or Serbia or Kenya or India, or like there's no guys like wearing checkered shirts like me, drinking Tim Hortons coffee, crashing trucks in the Punjab at scale like they are here. It's all in one direction, right? Yes. Another thing is that specifically with the Indian community in Canada, those guys were not truck drivers in India. They came here as students. They came here to go to school in Canada, discovered that that's a big, huge scam, and they're getting fake degrees, and they've got ripped off, which is fair play to them. They got ripped off, and then they show up in Canada. Well, what can I do? Oh, well, other Indian people are all over trucking, so I'll go drive truck, right? And and like, you know, this is going to sound like unpatriotic to America or whatever. Like, this is not like I hate the United States. This is just a legitimate criticism. Everyone's like, you know, America's number one. We have the best of everything. Okay, great. If we are going to bring the best and safest truck drivers to the United States, why are we not hiring them from Norway or Sweden or Australia? Where Norway and Sweden, they have like 80,000 kg double logging trucks. They've got road trains in Finland now, and they have snow, and they have mountains. Australians, road train drivers, Kiwi logging truck drivers. Those are the best truck drivers in the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
That's not who's moving here. That's not who we're recruiting to drive trucks, because that's not the point. The point is to make sure that Amazon and FedEx and JB Hunt and Werner and all the rest of these corporatist fucking clowns can make sure that other people's lines go up at the expense of the wage floor of every truck driver in America. Editorialization done for now. Miranda, you have some special insights into, for lack of a better word, the sort of Eastern European trucking community in America, the Balkan trucking community. It's like two different neighborhoods, but they're close. A little bit of crossover there with Slavic people and all that. But like, you know, there's a sort of meme we have online, the Chicago Volvo Mafia. Some of these guys operate in legitimate ways and some maybe not so much. And you've done a few videos trying to describe what's going on with those guys. And I was wondering if you had some insight into any particular licensing stuff going on, right? So like Danielle just told us about what's going on with California and all these NGOs and stuff. How does this licensing thing work with the sort of guys from, you know, Ukraine, Russia, Georgia, Serbia, Balkans, all over there?
It's an interesting question because just yesterday, I don't have that much insight. I know in California, there was a CDL trucking school. I don't know the name just because I never really paid attention, but I did hear there was a CDL trucking school that had a special relationship with someone at the DMV and they would be able to pass. It wasn't that they were not doing the exams, they were, but they were like not the kind of exams that you need to pass, right? It was like a simplified version.
Or done in your home language instead of English. That's another whole thing, is that a number of states now will let you take your CDL, your written theory testing, and your road test in your native tongue.
Absolutely.
I posted all those. I just want to, Miranda can continue in 1 second, but on the CDLs, and people get so frustrated on X because the police or the enforcement that are coming in behind the wrecks and doing the investigation, they won't post details about the driver. Miranda makes a good point. It is not that they're just selling CDLs off the side of the road and that they're immediately fake. These are legitimate CDLs issued by a DMV. The method to get that CDL is completely corrupt and broken. But when the officer looks at that CDL, it's real. It comes from a place. It is real. It's not a fake ID that I taped a phone book number on to make me look 21 when I was 18. I didn't do it. My friends did. Disclaimer. But it is real. And people get so frustrated with not getting the details immediately. And there's so much that they have to dig up before that person ever got a CDL and what paperwork went in to get it, what happened at the DMV, what CDL school was involved. That's why it takes so much time.
Correct. No worries. That is a very good point. But yesterday, it's funny, I didn't finish watching the video. I uncovered, simply because I do speak Russian, I'm able to look for things in Russian, uncovered a YouTube video of this guy who was getting his CDL from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he explained how to do it without a social security number, without a work authorization document, without anything. And basically, he said that the CDL school told him all you have to do is open an LLC. And that's where I kind of stopped watching. I need to rewatch it. I can send it to you guys if you want that video. But it's just, it makes you question everything. But I know for a fact that in California, there are certain CDL schools that have a special relationship with a certain DMV, and that certain people will only go to one certain DMV to get their license. That I know for a fact.
I've seen that in California specifically. I've seen it on Facebook. There were like 3 CDL schools that were very close to each other in a certain city. They all went to the same DMV. They would post pictures in front of the DMV. All of this is done so open and like brazen that it's insane. Pictures in front of the DMV sign, and then you go to the Google reviews, which those of you listening, if you've never Googled a CDL school and looked at the Google reviews, it is fascinating. It is a gold mine of intel. Look at those Google reviews and you will immediately know everything that's going on there.
Right. So this CDL school and the DMV you're talking about, that wouldn't happen to be in Fresno, would it?
It was, you know what? It was somewhere near Sacramento. That I know for a fact. I don't know if it was in Fresno. I can find out.
And I think I have a Substack article that I just haven't finished where I'm just compiling all of the DMV bust or the schemes that have came out where someone has been indicted. And almost every single one of them, a CDL school or multiple schools are involved. So it's not just the DMV. It's not just one carrier, one driver. It is a network of people working together to get paid and get these drivers out on the road.
Right. And on that note about it's not just one company or one DMV, it's also not one particular state. It's also not a state run by one particular political party. So what we've seen happen, so part of the reason I wanted to bring you on is because, again, this information has now reached escape velocity and it's gone out of our info silo out into the mainstream. And we have all these big Twitter accounts taking your information, Danielle, and plagiarizing it, and not crediting you. And that's another discussion. But what happens is that the wider political discussion in the United States and in Canada and other parts of the West, but specifically in the US and specifically online, is extremely polarized. Are you a Republican on Team Red? Are you a Democrat, right? And then they have their own little internal squabbles, and that's fine. But a lot of the commentary downstream of this is that these big Twitter political accounts keep making it about Democrats versus Republicans as regards this CDL problem. And it's not that, because we have massive amounts of bribery and fraud happening in Florida. We have had tons of non-domiciled CDLs and non-English speaking drivers and questionable issue of them in Texas, right? And then it's not everyone like hung on to this like one no-name given CDL in New York, but as you just said, it was mostly actually California. So it's all over the place, right? And then there was a famously some guy in Massachusetts got busted being done for bribing to give CDLs in Massachusetts. And
the sheriff was involved in that.
Yeah, and then there's like a CDL school in Oregon that's like that was like right on the border with Washington State and was working with Washington State DMV to give licenses to people at a trucking school in Oregon across state lines. It's just everywhere. It's corrupt DMVs. It's DOTs with who have worked with the feds to reduce requirements. It's dodgy schools. It's networks of NGOs and foundations taking government money, placing migrants and refugees in the trucking business because the government basically incentivized them to do it. Here's this pile of money, spend it, right? And it's taxpayer money. What we
incentivize will happen.
Right, exactly. That's a great way of putting it. And what's happening downstream of all this, again, and I want people need to understand, this is not just about we're all racists against Indians and people from Kenya or wherever. It's this has an economic effect because now the trucking industry is flooded with capacity. Everybody's rates are going down. Companies are going out of business. Insurance rates are going up because some of these unfortunate people who were not trained properly, who got thrown off the deep end without even knowing how to speak English, are working for dodgy operators with unsafe equipment, not enough training, are getting in accidents and collisions. I hate calling them accidents. Not an accident. This is done deliberately. They're getting in collisions. They're killing innocent people. Everyone's insurance is going through the roof. You're taking your life in your hands, driving down roads you paid for with your tax money in your own fucking country because the government has decided, hey, our native truck drivers are exploitable. And why do they think that? Let's dig deeper. The American Trucking Associations have been talking about a driver shortage for 40 years. That's a lie. It's a lie. There's never been a shortage. And they have run the table on this narrative for so long now that these NGOs and foundations, maybe they actually believe it. Maybe they're not like totally corrupt Soros, like, interlopers trying to destroy America. Maybe they are earnest and think they're trying to help these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they go to the ATA, and the ATA says, we need 160,000 drivers. And then the NGO trying to help these refugees is like, okay, cool. Well, we got some money and we're going to help. But they're not helping. They're making everything worse. And nobody understands that. And this like Republican versus Democrat thing and the online rage farming is not helping because they're not seeing the full bigger picture, which is why I brought you guys here today, because like you guys get it.
Yeah. And so the best example of this, and I support most everything that Ron DeSantis has done and continues to do in Florida. But when the Hope Trans wreck, Alexis, whatever his name is, Gonzalez, he is a Florida driver, wrecked in Texas Newsom, California ELP came out. DeSantis and Newsom start going back and forth on X because Newsom issues non-domiciled CDLs. DeSantis does not. What everyone missed out on, and I think I got the information out there enough to like quieten them down, is that Florida doesn't issue non-domiciled CDLs. They do issue limited term. It is the exact same thing. Non-domiciled in California for immigrants, refugees, anyone that does not have permanent residency in the United States is the exact same thing as a limited term license. And they just kept going back and forth about, they were arguing over what they both do. And the issues that we're dealing with are not Republican or Democrat. And when we minimize our issues down to a particular party and just pit them against each other, we will never get anything done. Ever. And it affects everyone.
No, that's totally true. And one of the things, very famously, Transportation Secretary Duffy does this presser 2 Fridays ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And, downstream of another viral video, again, released by our friend Shannon at American Truckers United, of this SUV getting closhed. And I don't know how many people were in there, but they didn't make it. And apparently the driver was from China, didn't speak English, working for some dodgy company. It went super viral. I think Shannon released that video on a Wednesday morning. Friday morning, Duffy is like doing his presser saying enough is enough, right? Like 48 hours, like instant reactivity, right? So good on Duffy for that. And because of ATU's research into all these non-domicile CDLs being issued, Duffy had some announcements about they're going to change the federal regulations, and then when they get renewed, they won't get renewed. They're going to disqualify EADs. They're going to tighten up who can apply for them. All of that's great. He came up with this number. It was like 190 or 200,000 CDLs.
200,000. So 200,000 is the estimate that it affects now. That number is based on the 5 states they've audited. And then out of the 200,000, they estimated that 194,000 would not be able to renew. I think that number is a fraction of what it will actually be.
Same.
Right. Well, no. So again, they have only, Duffy was very explicit about this, only completed their investigations into it was 5 or 6 states.
5.
That leaves 45 more states to check out. And, they haven't got to California yet. They haven't got to New York yet. They haven't got to some really big states with a lot of CDLs out there. And like, not soon enough.
And one of the reactions, and I want, people who are torqued up about this issue to pay attention to this, because one of the number one questions I got and I saw people posting about was that, what does this do about the guys that are already out on the road causing all of these problems? Fair enough question. And Duffy did say they're looking into ways to make this retroactive, but they cannot just wave their legal wand and make that happen as much as we would like them to. I really do want that to happen, because I want roads to be safer. I want the trucking industry to be functional. I'd like to get a job again, because right now I'm unemployable. Well, partly because I live in a weird spot, and also, like, again, this death drive from the American trucking associations to keep flooding the market. No, need more drivers, and not accurately calling it a retention problem, and instead calling it a shortage all the time. And then that whole system has altered the way the industry runs and the economics of it in such a fundamental way that it's literally like inverted reality. So they now view drivers with more than 20 years of experience as like a risk. I've heard people say to me, "Oh, our actuarial data says guys like you are going to be complacent, and you're more likely to get into a bigger crash than all these young guys that are like constantly getting in accidents," right? Like their mentality has completely flipped with this spreadsheet brain nonsense that's got nothing to do with reality. And part of it is like, they know if you want someone who's good, they're going to have expectations of being treated appropriately and paid a little bit more for their efforts to reflect that experience, because an experienced driver will save you money, right? Like, they're going to get better fuel mileage. They're going to be more thoughtful about maintaining the equipment. They're going to be checking their tires more. They know all the little tricks of the trade to like get loaded or unloaded faster, avoid certain things. They have sort of imbued knowledge about like the territory, what roads to take, what roads not to take. Maybe they know how to chain up where your other guy doesn't, and he can like make that delivery in the winter where this other driver won't. There's a lot of value in a highly experienced, competent, really skilled driver that does not appear in insurance rates or, well, how much fuel am I spending, right? Like, there's other costs. But like I was talking to Thomas Wasson about this yesterday, and I use this term spreadsheet brained a lot. Sometimes it's kind of a joke. Maybe I overuse it too much, but there's like some truth to it. People will look at like these columns here, but not take into account other columns over there. They're like laser focused on one part of things, and they're not taking a holistic view of what your costs are, what your potential risks are, that are not just like, oh, this guy's more, my insurance agent tells me this group is more likely to get in an accident than this group. Well, depends on what actuarial person you're talking to, right? But the inversion of reality from this narrative about a shortage of drivers is just so pervasive. And then it comes across in this whole architecture of now flooding our roads with third world labor, right? And it's just nuts. Miranda, you did a video a couple months ago now. I think it came out 5-6 weeks after Secretary Duffy and Trump announced that they were going to be reinforcing the English language proficiency mandate or regulation, I should say. And your video talked about the sort of Russian and Eastern European trucking community's reaction to that.
Oh yeah, that video kicked my butt.
Okay, so
everyone was pissed. Everybody.
So tell me how it kicked your butt, why it kicked your butt, what you got right, what you got wrong. If you got wrong, I don't think you were wrong. Maybe you were, but tell us about what you said in that video briefly, and then what you've seen since, because it ties into the rest of this.
Yeah, so what I said in that video, and this comes from another YouTuber, he's in trucking, but it's a Russian channel, has a company in Chicago. So he was talking about how this will affect those Eastern European companies, because a lot of drivers in those companies, not all, but a lot of them don't have English language proficiency. A lot of them also have non-domiciled CDLs, by the way. This is a video that I haven't made yet, but non-domiciled CDLs, and usually the way it happens, they cross the border illegally and then they claim asylum here. This is not going to happen anymore. This is not allowed anymore. So the panic is really real. But based on that video, yeah, a lot of companies, Eastern European companies, started losing drivers because the drivers were too scared to go out on the road and get caught and then get potentially deported or whatnot, or get in some sort of trouble. So a lot of drivers started leaving. The reason I got so much backlash for that video is because I always try to remain neutral in every video. And I guess in this case, I was too neutral. So a lot of folks, Eastern European folks were pissed off at me for even bringing this to light. And then a lot of Americans were pissed off thinking that I support the fact that there is no ELP compliance in Eastern European companies. I do not support it. I think English language proficiency is something that has been on the books, I believe, since 1937, if I'm not mistaken. So it's always been there. It hasn't been enforced. And yeah, Eastern European companies, especially right now, even more than with the ELP, they're in a lot of trouble because a lot of those drivers that they have are non-domiciled, and a lot of them operate in a way where they lease trucks or they just recently financed them. And they can't sell those trucks now because the market has too many used trucks. They won't be able to sell it for the price they purchased or for the price that they owe on it. So there is a lot of panic.
I had our friend Harvey from ATU. I had him on my show here a couple months back talking about that problem with equipment. So even with American companies who finance it, right? They get it on credit. A lot of this took place in 2021 during the COVID demand spike, and truck prices were really expensive for a hot minute, but everybody was trying to get in the market. And some of the lenders got greedy and, gave people money to buy a truck that was already 3 years old, but basically purchasing it at a brand new price. And now that truck is now 3 years older. So now it's a 6-year-old truck. It's got 800,000 or more miles on it. It was never worth what they paid for it originally, and now it's worth less. And a problem that domestic, like indigenous companies here in America are having is guys like Harvey and other quality operators have done their level best to keep making their truck payments, right? They're trying to do the right thing. But some of these lenders are telling other operators, because now they are underwater on those truck loans, oh, just keep working, pay us when you can. Because if they seize the truck, if they repossess the truck and execute the loan correctly, now that truck is sitting there. They can't sell it on a bad market, and they might not get anything back out of it. But if they let these guys keep operating, and, well, if they pay me 1 out of every 3 months, that's better than 0. That has allowed the market overcapacity to remain where it is, because the lenders are like, we'll just let them keep the trucks and pay us whenever, because if we seize it, it makes us nothing. And then now we own it, right?
Yeah. And I actually heard that too. A lot of people are talking about how banks are not going to repossess the trucks anymore. They don't have space. They can't do anything with that truck. So yeah, a lot of people are not making payments and they continue driving.
Right. Yeah. So that presents, if you are taking advantage of this, let's say you're one of these people that has the loan on this piece of equipment and you're still operating, you're like, okay, cool. My lender doesn't want me to pay and the market conditions suck. Well, I'll just cut that out of my rate because I don't have to pay it. I'll cut that like 50% back on that part of my rate, and then I'll get the work. And then the capacity issue continues to like be exacerbated, right? So like there's all these extra trucks on the road that under normal market conditions where lenders weren't greedy and we didn't like lend everybody money to buy trucks during a spike, they would have been repossessed like in 2008. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, people were losing their shirts, and there was just fields of trucks and equipment and forestry equipment and heavy equipment and construction equipment and all kinds of stuff just sitting around waiting to get auctioned off. But now it's not being repossessed. They're just letting it roll, which is like extending the pain for everybody.
Correct. And there's also, I think there's another reason, at least in my opinion, there's another reason why people keep going in a market like this where you're really not making anything. Barely anything. When you sign, what is it called? When you finance a truck, something that and I think it's the industry standard, you become, as a partner in a company, or if you are an owner of a company, you become the personal guarantor on that truck. So I think that also affects who is just running long enough to pay off their truck and then be done. Because again, you can't sell it for the amount you paid for it or for the amount that you owe on it. Yeah, so you're paying out of pocket to sell a truck at the moment.
Right. Yeah. This is. I think this might be called a tragedy of the economic commons, where right we are all stuck in this same financial system, and because everyone's pursuing their own incentives, it's totally crippling the system and making it so that nobody's making any money, and none of it makes any sense. And everyone's standing around wondering when the whole house of cards is going to come crashing down, right? Like,
I mean, at some point it has to. This has been going on for what, 3.5 years? Crazy.
right. One more question about your associates. You mentioned you got all this flack from, the Eastern European trucking community, and then Americans who clearly can't speak their own language and didn't understand what you were saying. What's your sense of, so something that I'm trying to square a circle of, right? Like there's numbers and facts and data, but then there's also feelings in the human element, right? Like,
Sure.
what is it? What's the, can you glean any attitude on the part of these guys in the sort of, Eastern European or Balkan trucking community about like how, like, do they have like some kind of sense of entitlement? Like, I'm just allowed to be here, even though this is not my country and I showed up illegally. What makes them think that like they can just show up here and do this? And now, oh shit, the hammer's coming down because I did this illegally and I might have to leave now. Like, what's their mentality? Was there like a long-term plan to immigrate to America? Are they just here to like do remittances? Like, what's your guess on that if you have one?
Yeah, no, I can actually answer it from experience, from what I have seen another YouTuber say. They believe that if you enter this country illegally, but then got legalized under asylum status, then they are legally present. It doesn't matter how they entered the country, as long as they got legalized and the system allowed them to get legalized. That means they're legally here. And that's why a lot of them are so angry about this non-domiciled CDL issue, because they find it to be unfair. They look at themselves as they are legally present, even though they came in illegally, which is, by the way, what the I-94 form is for, to prove that you entered legally.
Right. So to your estimation, again, and I'm only asking because I don't know. I understand there's some strife in Russia and Ukraine and has been going on for a little while. Maybe some of these guys are trying to escape that. Okay. Setting that part of it aside, how many of these guys would you, to your estimation, have, I don't want to say a legal right to asylum, but a legitimate moral or ethical right to it? Like they actually are facing some persecution or problem back home, or are they just making it up to get here?
Yeah, I'm not impartial to that because I am Ukrainian and I had a family member who was in Mariupol at the start of the war, and what happened to her was absolutely horrible. So I think people coming from Ukraine, like the U4U program, yeah, I think that would be, I don't know what's going on there now, but when this war started, yeah, at that point, I say that these people can claim asylum. In terms of folks from Russia coming in, I don't know enough about it. I don't know what's going on in Russia right now. I know that there's some censorship going on, but that's pretty much it. So yeah, unfortunately, all I can say is at the beginning of the war, people who were coming in from Ukraine to the US, that, yeah, I can see how that would happen because the situation there was so bad. I don't think Mariupol even exists anymore, which is where I was born.
Right. Oh, wow. No, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I didn't mean to bring up any bad memories.
Oh, no, no. It's
You did mention you are of Georgian extraction as well.
fine. Yeah.
Right.
Half Ukrainian, half Georgian.
Right. So like, but if you, let's say, all right, so setting aside again Ukraine, Russia, like all these guys showing up from say Serbia or Bulgaria or Romania or over that way, like refugees, asylum claims, I don't know, man.
I don't know enough about it. I honestly don't know enough about it. I think in general, what has been happening is that the asylum system, I mean, it has been kind of exploited at this point. Of course, there are cases where it is absolutely understandable why someone would claim asylum, but at this point, the numbers, yeah, I don't know if every single person, like I know there was one guy who claimed asylum, not going to name him, of course, who claimed asylum, who came, I don't remember, even St. Petersburg or something like that. That was not an asylum case.
Right. Well, it's interesting. So you say they entered illegally. What one more last question on this because you know I have to do this to satisfy my curiosity. Um, so this guy Harjinder Singh that like lit everybody's hair on fire at this crash in Florida on August 12th. He entered the United States from California or Mexico, sorry,
Yeah.
crossed the border illegally. Back and forth, you know, Biden let him stay, Trump let him stay. He was supposed to be deported, you know, cried about, you know, being attached to some Sikh organization that's like persona non grata according to the Indian national government. But then his friend said he was planning on moving back to India anyway, and it's unclear whether or not that guy was full of shit, right? But let's say, for instance, you actually are like, hey man, I got a problem at home in Ukraine or whatever, but then you go to Mexico or Canada first. Um, I mean, Mexico is a pretty cool place. I'd rather hang out there and be on the beach. Um, you know, you're safe there if you're in Mexico hanging out on the beach. You're not getting, you know, drones flown into you or whatever. Or if you're, you know, a Sikh guy, you don't have to worry about the Indian government arresting you while you're in Mexico or Canada. You got to this other place. Like, why here? Why do you have to like keep moving? Right? Like, you're somewhere safe now.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying, and I think the reason for this, why do a lot of them go to the trucking industry specifically? The reason for this is, first of all, during COVID, that was, I mean, such a boom in the market and it got spread on social media. I know that a lot of Eastern European channels were talking about, oh my God, I'm making so much money. Look at this house, look at this yacht, look at this and that. Plus, this thing that triggers me, the ATA's lie about a driver shortage, makes them think if they come here, they are going to basically be living in the same situation as it was in COVID times, which is not true. And unfortunately, they're not listening to the truth of truckers and folks who know this industry who are saying it's really bad right now in the market. And instead, they're choosing to listen to the ATA because that's what's reported. I mean, everyone reports on this huge driver shortage, and they think they have an opportunity to make money here.
Yeah. They're believing what they want to sort of supplant their actions and what they're doing. Danielle, back to you. I think we're approaching an hour and a half here.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you guys too long. I got to go pick up my kids. But any final thoughts?
I have one final thought and it won't take long. I just wanted to share, let me share my screen one more time. I'm gonna circle back to this no name given, which is what we start off as and spent most of the time on. But to support the name switching and why I think this is as absurd as it is, I'm gonna share my Substack article and then I have one of Miranda's X posts pulled up. And so on both of these, two different data sources, two different ways of filing where this name is changed. And so this screenshot, I'm going to make it bigger. On this one, in the red, highlighted or highlighted red, you can see where the person has filed their USDOT with some variation of no name given. I think all of these are all no name given. And then where I've highlighted in green, that's where they went after it was approved, sometime after that USDOT made its way through the FMCSA system so they can get on the road. You can see that a full name is entered. And so there wasn't a full legal name there the whole time. But for some reason, they filed as no name given. That's why I think it's all a joke. I think it's ridiculous. Second data source that I didn't have. Miranda went in and found this. Thankfully, she did, not trying to like prove me wrong. She just seemed like she wanted to see for herself, like, is this really happening? And that's exactly what she did. So, Miranda, where did you get this? I'm not going to read your tweet. You can explain.
Yeah, it was the business filings, California business filings. You put in the name of the company and it shows you different statements of information, how everything has changed. The first 17 records I went through, 7 of them had this.
And it's like there is a full legal name, and then it changes to or from no name given. And trucking is the only industry that allows this. So in Corporation Wiki, I went in and I just typed in because you can search by officer, and it's easier than open corporates for this activity. You can search by officer. So I typed in no name given. It pulled up 113 different people and associated companies. 98 of those are in California. Back to my California statement. Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and Texas. All of these are trucking companies. I think there were like 3 outliers out of the 110 that were not related to transportation, which if I dig in, I promise that I could probably connect them to a trucking company. We are the only industry allowing this to happen. Why? I don't know. It's absurd. Those are my final thoughts.
Yeah, it is very strange why this is being allowed to happen. There's, I want to address a question I've gotten, or a statement, I should say, from a lot of my followers on Twitter, people that read my Substack, people I bump into in real life, is, it's going to sound conspiratorial, but like when you look at all of this stuff that's happening, it sort of, it follows. It's an easy conclusion to make, which is that we are being told that autonomous trucks, robotic driverless trucks are just over the horizon. They're going to be here soon. 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. What part of the markets are going to penetrate? That's all open questions. I have opinions on that, but that's separate to what these folks are saying to me. Is they're looking around at all the collision statistics, the crashes, the fatalities,
Yep.
the constant flow of videos on Twitter and on other social media. TikTok is just wall to wall, truck crashes everywhere. Whatever you think about it, the fact remains that most of the people involved in them, guys driving the truck, not heritage Americans. Let's just put it that way, okay? And so these people come to this conclusion that is this being orchestrated on purpose? The government lets these people register their trucking companies and their CDLs without a clear identifying name, which makes it very difficult to hold them to account for anything or be investigated by the FBI or FMCSA or anyone. The FMCSA is not doing anything about the chameleon carrier stuff.
Correct.
These accidents keep piling. I shouldn't say accidents, sorry. Collisions keep piling up. This problem is not being dealt with. I mean, good on Secretary Duffy. He's starting to nibble around the edges of it. But then robot trucks, they're safer. We are told they're safer.
Of course.
Right?
Why would you not make a problem so bad, so terrible, flood the industry with people that should not be in trucks, make us look like we're not capable as humans to drive a truck, and then give the solution, oh, it doesn't have to be a human driving a truck. If humans aren't capable and they're creating all of this chaos on the roads, destroying families, ripping apart families, shattering families, why not? use a robot.
Right.
Sounds
It
very
sounds good.
convenient.
It does. I mean, it makes total sense. Now, how's the old saying go? Never ascribe to malice, which is more properly described by incompetence. And there's an awful lot of incompetence and corruption, right? Like, as we just spent the last hour and a half talking about, clearly certain states just DGAF, they don't care. And hey, migrant, refugee, who just here you go, here's a license. So some people might get upset that we haven't talked about the like voting and politics angle on this, because once you got a CDL, man, hey, some places you can go vote with it, right? Do you have citizenship? Are you allowed to vote? No. I'm,
They don't care.
for people who don't know already, I mean, most of my fans know this, but if you're watching this and you don't know who I am, I'm from Canada. I live in the United States and have done so for 9 years now on a permanent residency card. I'm a legal immigrant. Permanent residency card allows me to own property, get a job, pay taxes, do all the things except participate in democracy. I am not allowed to run for office and I'm not allowed to vote. So I don't, right? For the people who see what's going on in the bigger political picture with the fight between the two main parties and the accusation that one of those parties seems to be abusing things to get other people to vote for them who shouldn't, again, why are we issuing all these CDLs to people who shouldn't have them under rules that like are now opaque and got changed and nobody's following anyways? Right? I hate to end this show with like a quick quote unquote conspiracy theory, but man, it's awful convenient that all of this stuff is tied together, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm not going to make any declarative statements about it, but I'm going to leave it to the listeners and viewers to decide.
Do what you will with this information.
Do what you will with this information. But, it seems to me that some things are afoot. All right. Well, I'm glad you guys joined me. Always nice to sit down with professionals and people doing great research into the business. I'd like to compliment you guys on doing a better job than the media. I mean,
Thank you, Gord.
no, seriously, like,
Yeah.
well, clearly you've already been plagiarized by that one CBS report in Texas.
Yeah.
Like they're not asking these deeper questions about anything. They're clearly not using the publicly available tools, right? So all of this research that Danielle and Miranda have brought to bear on this show, and they bring to bear Miranda on her YouTube channel and Danielle on her Substack and on Twitter, it's publicly available information, publicly available databases. You guys don't pay some fee. You don't have like some secret magic wand you wave and the information appears on your computer. It's mostly government databases that anybody can go and look up, right?
Yeah.
If you are a capital J journalist working in trucking and reporting on the trucking industry, or a regular mainstream journalist that's trying to figure out WTF is going on with all of these crashes, there's all your intel.
I think the secret wand in it that all of us have sitting here, the three of us, is that we do have experience and we are passionate about this industry. Whereas there are journalists and even ones that now have me blocked on X, if they begin investigating a wreck, they will get so stuck on something like the business filings or the driver that's their story. The driver, the business filing. And they don't ever go deeper to say, what's really going on here? How did we get here?
Yeah,
and that's my frustration. And that's where I've tried to really dig in, is to fill in all of the gaps that the media has left wide open.
Right.
Because that's the important part.
That's why I just finished writing a book that looks like it's going to be over 300 pages.
That's beautiful. I can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah, I just sent off the rough copy, the rough chapters all went to my editor. He edited them all, sent them back to me. I revised them, added stuff he asked, fixed things, extra notations, answered questions, expanded on certain stuff. That's all back to him. Then it goes to the publisher. Then they chew on it for a couple of weeks. Maybe they'll ask me to revise some things or do some more editing. But we're supposed to have a finalized manuscript here in a couple of weeks.
That's so
but
exciting.
yeah, but my work is done. But I mean, I did it the same way you guys are doing this. Like, there's so much more to the story here.
Yes.
And we can't let the ATA have a monopoly on talking about the trucking industry. And then, there's other actors in trucking media who, for whatever reason, are likewise not digging deep enough into this. And I'm glad you guys are. I'm glad the guys at ATU are, Bonehead Truckers, everybody else on FreightX. Thank you to all of our mutuals and people we talk to on Twitter every day. You guys are great. Thanks for listening. If you are somebody listening to this that's not on FreightX or doesn't otherwise know or follow us, Miranda, tell people how they can find you and your work.
Trucking Made Successful on YouTube, and I think it's TMS Successful on X. Yeah. Thank you for
Danielle?
having me.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, all of my socials are linked on my website, daniellechaffin.com. And then if you're on X, it's maybe Danielle with 3 E's at the end.
Maybe Danielle. Right.
Yep.
All right, ladies. Well, hey, again, thank you very much for your time. Everyone go follow these guys, check out their work. It's fantastic. It's real deep dive investigative research into the industry that keeps us all fed and takes jet fuel to airports so we can fly around, fills up your local gas station, takes supplies to your local hospital, parts to your local school district to fix the buses that take your kids to school. Every single thing in our material reality, it's true. It's not just a cliche. If you got it, a truck brought it. And our industry is being immolated and ruined by, in part, some of the things we talked about today. And I would like to see it fixed. And thank you, ladies, for your service in helping to fix it. Everyone else?
Thank you so much, Gordon.
Yeah, no.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. My book is called End of the Road, Inside the War on Truckers. It's being published by an outfit called Creed and Culture. You can go to their website, creedandculture.com. Pre-order will be available in November. It publishes in March. I will probably be narrating an audiobook version for those of you podcast folks listening while you're going down the road. There will also be a Kindle e-reader version. You'll find all about that very soon. I hope you check it out. Otherwise, you can also go to my Substack, autonomoustruckers.substack.com. Follow me on X at Gord McGill. Follow Danielle and Miranda. Keep it lit. Keep paying attention. Be careful out there on the roads. Hold your loved ones tight. And thank you, God. And we'll see you all later. Way of the road.
Everyone, stay free.
Stay free. Way of the road.